The miracle doctor won't be a kept man. My heart belongs ashore. Chapter 991. Damn it! My plan has been ruined, Daoist Master Caleb snarled. He stood up, intending to pick up his duster. PF! He felt a burning sensation in his chest and couldn't hold back, spitting out blood again. Feeling weak and dizzy, he had to support himself on the incense table to avoid collapsing. Cough, cough. Caleb coughed violently, his body appearing extremely weak. His gaze fell on a bottle emitting a red glow under the incense table, filled with a bright red liquid resembling human blood. Just one more, Caleb said regretfully. Your method of nourishing the vein with yin blood seems to be the exact opposite of what it should be, doesn't it? At that moment, Horace Moor's voice came from outside the window. Who are you? Caleb reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, becoming extremely tense and alert. Horace pushed the door open and entered, looking at Caleb. Horace Moor? Caleb recognized him immediately. Daoist Master Caleb of Imperial Dragon. I didn't expect you to betray Imperial Dragon one day, Horace said with a smile. Caleb was surprised to hear Horace accuse him of betrayal right away. His expression quickly returned to normal, but his eyes showed a hint of surprise as he asked, You have the dragon vein's power. Indeed, I obtained the dragon vein from Belford Mountain. I wanted to get the dragon vein from Sacred Dragon Mountain in Dragon City, but failed, so I came to Five Rams Mountain, Horace said candidly. You're quite greedy, Caleb sneered. Aren't you just as greedy? Horace replied with a meaningful look at Caleb. What do you want from me? Caleb asked, probing. I went to the dragon vein at Five Rams Mountain and found it impossible to absorb. It seems you set an array formation. The dragon vein's power cannot merge with the mountain, so I came to you, Horace explained directly. It seems your ability to sense dragon vein power has become quite strong, Caleb commented, watching Horace. I can already match Kiran York. If I can absorb the dragon vein power from Five Rams Mountain, I will be able to defeat Kiran, even kill him, Horace said confidently. Ha! Caleb laughed at Horace and said, Do you think I will give it to you? Of course not. You've spent your entire life working for this, Horace shook his head. Good that you know. But now your method of nourishing the vein with yin blood has failed. What else can you DDO? Horace asked, smiling at Caleb. Caleb's face showed anger and disappointment. Even if it has failed, I won't give it to you. That's impossible, Caleb said firmly. Caleb, there's no need to be so tense. I know you've spent your life trying to enhance your power and achieve a breakthrough, but I'm telling you, you can't do it now, Horace said. You want to kill me? Caleb's demeanor turned cold and powerful, though he remained cautious. It won't be easy to kill me, and you might not succeed. Ha ha, Horace laughed and said, You're being too cautious. I'm not here to kill you. Then, what do you want? Caleb asked while trying to calm his breathing. No need to be in a hurry or so cautious. I'm here to discuss cooperation, Horace said calmly. What cooperation? You give me the dragon vein power from Five Rams Mountain. Dream on, Caleb interrupted angrily. You're so impatient. I wasn't finished. What else do you have to essay? Caleb asked coldly. The dragon vein power from Sacred Dragon Mountain is in Jenny Leo's body. It matches your method of nourishing the vein with yin blood. If you get it, you can absorb the power from Sacred Sun Mountain's dragon vein. I get the power from Five Rams Mountain, and you get the power from Sacred Sun Mountain. Isn't that mutually beneficial? Horace said, tempting Caleb. Caleb's expression changed, showing excitement and anticipation. Seeing this, Horace continued, With the dragon vein power, we can cooperate to find the remaining 3 dragon veins. If each of us gets 3 dragon veins, we can truly achieve a breakthrough, even escape this dimension. Caleb's heart trembled at Horace's suggestion. If he could get the dragon vein power from Jenny and then absorb the power from Five Rams Mountain, he could achieve a breakthrough. The temptation was immense. In fact, Horace had the same thought. Both intended to use the other to achieve their own goals. All right, Caleb pretended to hesitate before agreeing. Good. Let's work together. Horace extended his hand. I need to see the power of the dragon vein from Sacred Dragon Mountain first, Caleb said firmly, not shaking hands with Horace. Fine. They are currently in Kirkby Town. If I'm correct, they will come to your temple at Five Rams Mountain tomorrow. You should either check it out in advance or hide now to avoid Kiran's suspicion, Horace suggested. Caleb smirked. You're so timid. Is he that powerful? Do you not remember how you got injured? Horace retorted. Damn it, Caleb cursed. Shall we go to Kirkby Town? Horace asked. Caleb thought for a moment. All right. Have you figured out how to get the dragon vein power from Sacred Dragon Mountain? Horace asked. That's not your concern, Caleb refused to answer. Horace was disappointed. You're very cautious. Caleb didn't reply, already walking out and heading to Kirkby Town. Horace followed closely. Both harbored ulterior motives. Kiran had already returned to the hotel and felt a wave of heat upon entering his room. Chapter 992. Kiran York stood at the doorway, gazing into the room. He hesitated for a long time, unable to go inside due to the intense heat. Lilian Yanez had already stepped out of her room. Sensing Kiran's return, she glanced inside and sighed. "I think it's because she's angry, which is causing these frequent outbursts. She's too willful. I can't do anything about it," Kiran replied, thinking about how Jenny Leo insisted on sharing a room with him. Considering he couldn't be with women and hadn't told Snow Xander about this, it was impossible. Lilian looked at Kiran and said, "Let's observe the situation. We don't know what might happen." Kiran nodded. "I'll go inside and see if I can absorb some of the dragon vein's power." Lilian didn't oppose him. Entering the room, Kiran immediately felt like he was in a sauna. The intense heat made his skin prickle and sweat as if molten lava was flowing around him, threatening to melt him. He took a deep breath, moved closer to Jenny Leo, and sat cross-legged beside her, attempting to absorb the power within her. The power in Jenny's body felt like a furnace. As Kiran approached, it was like touching a red-hot stove, his whole body burning with heat. He concentrated, awakening the dragon saliva power within him, and began to absorb the energy slowly. Initially, it was excruciatingly painful, like being burned alive, but gradually the power started to integrate with his body, establishing a connection. Seeing hope, Kiran continued guiding the energy into his body. Jenny, still asleep, sensed Kiran's presence and instinctively moved closer to him, nestling into his embrace as if finding a warm haven. With Jenny in his arms, Kiran could absorb even more of the dragon vein's power. He felt increasingly fatigued and soon fell asleep beside her, entering a state of meditation to digest and absorb the energy. Even in his sleep, Kiran continued to absorb and cultivate the dragon vein's power within Jenny. Lilian, sensing Kiran's calm, felt relieved and went to sleep. Meanwhile, Horace Moor and Daoist Master Caleb arrived at the hotel while everyone else was asleep. Thanks to their ability to sense the dragon vein power, they easily located Jenny and Kiran's room. They stayed in the adjacent room and released their auras to sense the energy from Kiran and Jenny. A pleased look quickly spread across Caleb's face as he sensed the pure and powerful dragon vein energy within Jenny, perfect for his method of nourishing the vein with yin blood. He looked at Horace and nodded slightly. Horace also sensed Jenny's energy and was equally delighted. Absorbing her power would be even more potent than the energy from Belford Mountain. The two exchanged looks of anticipation and decided to act immediately. As they stood up and approached Kiran and Jenny's room, Lilian, though asleep, sensed their presence and woke up. She stepped out just in time to see them about to enter the room. "What are you doing?" Lilian demanded angrily, recognizing both men. "Ah, it's sect leader Yanez. I didn't expect to meet you here," Caleb said casually. "Sect leader of Imperial Dragon, are you really going to join forces with Horace Moor?" Lilian's face turned cold as she questioned them loudly. "Ha ha." Horace laughed loudly, looking at Lilian. "Sect leader Yanez, your words are unappealing. By your logic, are you not also collaborating with Kiran York?" Lilian sneered at Horace. "Horace Moor, you traitor of Imperial Dragon, have no right to comment. If you're not a traitor, why are you with Kiran, who killed members of Wolfgate, Panthergate, and Liongate?" Caleb retorted on behalf of Horace. "So, you've chosen betrayal." Lilian's voice grew colder as she stepped forward. "Don't speak as if you're so pure, sect leader Yanez. Aren't you close to Kiran for the dragon vein's power?" Horace mocked. "You're seeking death." Lilian, enraged by Horace, floated up and attacked them. "Horace, I'm injured, so it's up to you," Caleb said, retreating to avoid the fight. Horace, though annoyed at Caleb's behavior, felt confident facing Lilian alone. "Don't worry." Whoosh. Horace raised his right palm and struck at Lilian. Bang! Their palms clashed midair with a dull sound. Lilian was sent flying back but managed to catch her breath midair, avoiding a collision with the wall. However, her face was pale, her breath uneven. Horace remained composed and confident, his expression full of self-assuredness after defeating Lilian. He walked towards Lilian, laughing coldly. "Lilian Yanez, even Zara Yanez wouldn't be my match if she were alive, let alone you. I advise you not to meddle." Horace, now brimming with confidence from absorbing the dragon vein power, looked down on Lilian, believing he could quickly kill her. Lilian snorted. "You're arrogant just because you absorbed some dragon vein power? Ha ha." Horace laughed arrogantly. "So, what if I am?" He struck at Lilian again, intending to cripple her. Lilian avoided the blow and moved towards Kiran and Jenny's room. Seeing Lilian retreat, Caleb's eyes gleamed with malice, waiting for her to enter Kiran and Jenny's room. Horace, annoyed at her evasion, said, "Lilian Yanez, I don't want to waste time." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He launched 3 more strikes at her. Lilian, using the momentum, crashed into Kiran and Jenny's room. Caleb shot in like an arrow, closely following her. Chapter 993. Bang! Daoist Master Caleb collided with Lilian Yanez's palm. It turned out that Lilian had been on high alert and instinctively attacked when she saw him. Caleb was struck and flew backward, seeming to be thrown far away. Horace Moor, who had entered from behind, caught Caleb and mocked, "Miracle Doctor, your martial arts are too weak." Caleb didn't mind the taunt, acting as if he hadn't heard it, maintaining a calm demeanor. Lilian's gaze shifted to the bed where Kiran York and Jenny Leo were sleeping, embracing each other like lovers in a deep, sweet sleep, completely unaware of the intruders. She grew anxious and surprised. She had entered the room hoping they would wake up and help her. After exchanging a few moves with Horace, Lilian knew he was powerful. With Caleb present, she feared an ambush on Kiran and decided to feign defeat and enter the room. However, to her dismay, Kiran and Jenny were in a deep slumber, absorbed in their cultivation. They're absorbing the dragon vein power and can't wake up while cultivating. "This is our chance," Caleb said to Horace. Horace understood as well, smiling with delight. "Lilian Yanez, we only want Kiran and Jenny. This has nothing to do with you. Leave now and you might survive." "Dream on!" Lilian's heart raced, but she deliberately acted calm and defiant. She knew she couldn't retreat and began attacking both Horace and Caleb. "Horace, you handle Lilian. I'll take Jenny's soul," Caleb instructed. "All right," Horace replied, moving to engage Lilian. Lilian grew desperate. If Jenny's soul were taken, Caleb would absorb its power, draining the dragon vein and exhausting its energy. "Don't you dare," Lilian shouted, unleashing her full strength against Horace. Horace, bolstered by the dragon saliva power and his superior martial skills, easily overpowered Lilian despite her best efforts. Even with the power of the dragon saliva in her, she was still not a match for Horace Moor. On the other side, Caleb held a soul-capturing bell, shaking it over Jenny's body while chanting. The room filled with cold winds, making Lilian shiver. "Lilian Yanez, if you don't run, you'll die," Horace taunted gleefully. "Never," Lilian retorted, undeterred. "You brought this on yourself," Horace said, striking her shoulder with a powerful palm. "Ah!" Lilian cried out, flying backward, blood spraying from her mouth. Meanwhile, Caleb successfully extracted Jenny's soul, now a white phantom floating in confusion. Lilian's body crashed onto Kiran, staining his face with her blood. "Lilian!" Kiran exclaimed, jolting awake to see her pale, bloodied face. "Lilian!" He gently laid her down, then leaped towards Horace with a fierce strike. Horace, surprised that Kiran had awakened, still boasted, "Kiran, today I'll kill you, bang!" Their fists clashed, and Horace cried out in pain as he was thrown back, spitting blood. Seeing Jenny's soul being captured, Kiran cursed. "Damn sorcerer!" He charged at Caleb, who laughed and jumped out the window with Jenny's soul. "Kiran, save Jenny!" Lilian shouted. Kiran turned to see Jenny convulsing, foaming at the mouth. He quickly pressed several points on her body, stabilizing her. "Lilian, are you all right?" Kiran asked, checking her injuries. "I'm fine. Don't chase them. They're probably gone by now," Lilian said, sitting up. Kiran reached the door and saw Horace had fled. "Who was that sorcerer?" "Caleb, the guardian of the dragon vein at 5 Rams Mountain for Imperial Dragon," Lilian explained. "He's the one behind it." Kiran snorted. "Are you suggesting George Langford's wife's condition was caused by him?" Lilian asked, catching on to Kiran's thoughts. "Definitely. No one else could have done it," Kiran replied, looking at the broken window. "Anyone collaborating with Horace is no good." Lilian fell silent, her eyes cold. Damn Caleb abusing his position. "This is good. We can investigate and expose Imperial Dragon's traitors," Kiran said with a determined look. Lilian remained quiet, knowing Imperial Dragon was likely riddled with traitors. No one mourned for Blake Frost's body returned from Sunland, and traitors like Horace roamed unchecked. "I suspect there are powerful figures behind this all after the dragon vein power," Kiran said, meeting Lilian's eyes. "Horace and Caleb are likely just pawns." "If that's true, Imperial Dragon is in grave danger," Lilian said, worried. "We're heading to 5 Rams Mountain now to retrieve Jenny's soul. We'll uncover Imperial Dragon's traitors as we go," Kiran said resolutely. Lilian nodded in agreement. Both had the same silent suspicion. Could Lady Meiji be connected to the traitors? Kiran drove through the night, with the soulless Jenny Leo, towards 5 Rams Mountain. Chapter 994. 5 Rams Mountain is located to the east of 5 Rams City. It is because of the mountain that 5 Rams City became known as a mountain city. When Kiran York and Lilian Yanez arrived in 5 Rams City, it was already dawn. Kiran had sped for 2 hours to get there, and the car was scratched and dented in multiple places due to the rough mountain roads. Sitting in the car, They watched the sunrise in the east. Their hearts were filled with complex emotions. This should have been a hopeful moment, but with Jenny Leo's soul missing, it felt heavy and oppressive. "We need to head straight to 5 Rams Mountain," Kiran said to Lilian. Lilian thought for a moment and then replied, "If Daoist Master Caleb, the miracle doctor, caused a pregnant woman to die so tragically, he must be up to something sinister. I suspect he has committed many such atrocities over the years in 5 Rams City." Kiran looked at Lilian. "What are you suggesting? Do you want to incite public outrage?" Lilian said, "For a city, the temple on 5 Rams Mountain is likely a place of worship for many. If we go there and confront Caleb or even destroy the temple, it could anger many people. We can't worry about that now. We must act quickly. If we give Caleb the chance to control Jenny's soul, he will continuously absorb the dragon vein's power," Kiran said firmly. "Can you ensure that no innocent people will be harmed?" Lilian asked. "Trust me," Kiran replied, stepping on the gas and heading towards 5 Rams Temple. Impatience and urgency drove him forward. When they arrived at 5 Rams Temple, it was just 6 in the morning. The temple, bathed in the morning sun, looked mysterious and solemn, evoking awe. Thinking of Caleb's cruelty, Kiran saw the temple as a den of evil. Anger surged in him as he parked the car carrying Jenny Leo and rushing towards the temple. At the entrance, they saw several young Taoist priests cleaning the temple grounds. Seeing Kiran, one of the young priests assumed he was there for treatment, as many visitors usually came for that. One of them stepped forward and said, "Sir, the temple isn't open yet. If you're looking for my master for treatment, please come back after 8. "Where is Caleb?" Kiran asked coldly. "How dare you address my master by his name?" One of the young priests shouted angrily. "Tell Caleb to come out, or I'll destroy your temple," Kiran said, handing Jenny to Lilian, his body radiating dominance. "Throw him out," one of the young priests commanded. "Beat him." The others swung their brooms at Kiran. These young priests were trained fighters, and Kiran's provocation made them ruthless. "Get lost," Kiran shouted, releasing his internal energy. Crash! The brooms shattered into countless pieces, and the young priests were thrown back, landing on the ground with painful cries. Kiran approached the first priest who had spoken, asking, "Where is Caleb?" "Who are you?" the young priest asked angrily, still reluctant to answer. Kiran raised his hand and struck the building beside him. Boom! The building's corner collapsed as if hit by a bulldozer. Seeing this, the young priest trembled in fear. "Where is Caleb?" Kiran asked again. "He's in the main house to the south. I don't know if he's up yet," the young priest said, trembling. Kiran grabbed the young priest and headed to the main house. In a few steps, they reached the door. "Is it here?" Yes, the young priest nodded quickly. Kiran kicked the door open. No one was inside. He looked around. The bed was untouched, indicating no one had slept there. Kiran guessed that Caleb hadn't returned from Kirkby Town yet since he had driven all night to get there. Kiran dropped the young priest and started searching the room. Soon, his eyes landed on a red bottle. It was a purple bottle, but the red inside was so intense that it overshadowed the purple and shone through. The red light from the bottle seemed to carry endless resentment and vengeful spirits, sending chills down Kiran's spine before igniting his anger. "Sorcerer!" Kiran cursed and grabbed the bottle. It felt as cold as Antarctic ice, almost slipping from his hand. He could sense the tormented souls inside, crying out in anguish. Staring at the bottle, Kiran turned to Lilian and said, "Caleb used umbilical cord blood to make this yin blood vein nourisher. He needs it to nourish his meridians." Lilian, supporting Jenny, shivered and said coldly, "That's inhumane. Damn him for doing such cruel things," Kiran said furiously. He wanted to smash the bottle but decided to help the tormented souls instead. "We'll wait here. He'll come back for this bottle," Kiran said to Lilian, holding back his anger. Lilian nodded. Holding the bottle, Kiran and Lilian waited in the courtyard for Caleb to return. The young priests in the temple were too scared to move, staying quiet and obedient. Half an hour later, Caleb and Horace Moor arrived. They sensed Kiran's presence and stopped in their tracks. "Damn Kiran, he's already here," Horace cursed. "If it weren't for you needing healing, I could have returned earlier," Caleb rebuked, thinking of his yin blood vein nourisher bottle. "Without me, would you have captured Jenny's soul?" Horace retorted coldly. "What do we do now, Caleb, knowing he couldn't defeat Kiran?" asked Horace. "You came back for that bottle, right?" Horace confirmed. "Yes! With that bottle, we can leave this temple and even remotely absorb the dragon vein power from 5 Rams Mountain," Caleb said confidently. Horace was pleased to hear this. He thought for a moment and said, "Spread the word that Kiran York is here to destroy the temple. The people of 5 Rams City who worship here will be furious and come to drive him away. We can then sneak in and grab the yin blood vein nourisher bottle." Caleb was delighted by the idea and gave Horace a thumbs up. Brilliant. I'll arrange it now. I'll continue healing while you spread the word, Horace said, sitting down to meditate. Caleb made a few calls, spreading the news in the guise of a young priest. Soon, the news that Kiran York was destroying 5 Rams Temple spread throughout 5 Rams City. The city's residents who regularly visited the temple were outraged and rushed towards 5 Rams Mountain to stop him. Returning from Kirkby Town, George Langford also heard the news and hurried to see his benefactor, Kiran York. Chapter 995. The people who rushed to 5 Rams Temple saw the mess in the courtyard and the collapsed buildings. They started shouting loudly. "Who is Kiran York? Who gave you the right to destroy 5 Rams Temple? Today we're going to beat you to death, you bastard." The young Daoist priests, seeing so many people arriving, felt like they had found their saviors. Regaining his confidence, a young priest pointed at Kiran. "He is the one who wants to destroy 5 Rams Temple. So, you're Kiran York? Why are you trying to destroy 5 Rams Temple?" "We're going to take you to the police," said the people of 5 Rams City as they surrounded Kiran. Kiran saw these people and smirked coldly. He knew Caleb was back. Without Caleb, these people wouldn't know his name. Standing tall, Kiran said in a deep voice, "Caleb, come out, or you'll regret it." "How dare you disrespect Daoist Master Caleb?" The people became even more furious upon hearing Kiran's threat and prepared to attack him. "Caleb, don't make me call you a coward," Kiran sneered. "Beat him to death." The crowd, enraged by Kiran's continued insults, surged forward to attack him. Daoist Master Caleb is nothing but a sorcerer. At this moment, George Langford's voice suddenly rang out from the back of the crowd. Someone angrily shouted, "Who dares to call Daoist Master Caleb a sorcerer?" "I." However, halfway through, the person saw it was George Langford and immediately fell silent, showing respect instead. George was the richest man in 5 Rams City, known for his philanthropy. Everyone in the city knew him. "Isn't that Mr. Langford?" someone exclaimed. "I heard Mr. Langford's wife died." "How is she?" Someone noticed George's wife holding a child and looked shocked. "Yes, I heard that too. I even cried when I heard it. I always believe that good people get good rewards. Mr. Langford is a kind man. Congratulations, Mr. Langford, on your family's safety and the birth of your child." The angry crowd began praising George. George ignored the crowd's words and quickly made his way to Kiran. He bowed to Kiran and said, "Thank you, Miracle Dr. York, for saving the people of 5 Rams City from harm." "Mr. Langford, what are you talking about?" someone asked in confusion, looking at George. George looked at the crowd and said, "Caleb is a sorcerer. My wife and child were almost killed by him. If it weren't for Miracle Dr. York, the 3 of us would be separated by life and death." "What?" the crowd gasped, looking at Kiran with disbelief. "You must have been bribed," a young priest shouted angrily at George. "Bribed?" George sneered. "Everyone in Kirkby Town can testify. Last night, if it weren't for Miracle Dr. York, my family would be holding a funeral. My wife and daughter would be buried by now." "Hiss!" the crowd collectively gasped, looking at George Langford in shock. They knew he wouldn't lie. "Miracle Dr. York, should I call the construction crew to tear down this temple and flatten it?" George asked Kiran, his tone full of hatred for the temple. Kiran shook his head slightly and said, "No need." "Understood," George replied respectfully, standing aside. "I still don't believe it," someone shouted from the crowd after a brief silence. The angry George turned to the speaker and said, "I have no reason to deceive you." "No need to argue," Kiran said calmly, addressing the crowd while holding up the bottle. "Do you know what's inside this bottle?" The crowd saw the red liquid but didn't understand. "Is it wine?" someone guessed. "This is filled with umbilical cord blood," Kiran said, his voice full of rage. "Umbilical cord blood?" The crowd was stunned, their eyes wide with disbelief. Kiran nodded. "Yes, it's filled with umbilical cord blood and countless tormented souls." "Tiss!" Many in the crowd instinctively stepped back, their eyes filled with complex emotions, fear and apprehension. "Has anyone here, like me, brought a pregnant wife here only for her and the child to die afterward?" George asked the crowd. "My wife died like that. So did mine. My family too." Dozens of men stepped forward, tears welling in their eyes. Seeing so many people, Kiran's heart burned with anger. Caleb's inhumanity was beyond extreme. "Was it really Daoist Master Caleb who killed them?" someone asked, tears streaming down their face. "I'll summon the souls inside this bottle so you can see for yourselves," Kiran said, not wanting to explain further. The crowd was stunned, unable to respond. Kiran placed the bottle on the ground in a shaded area and began chanting. Soon, images of women started appearing from the bottle, though many seemed trapped inside. "That's my wife, Suya. That's my wife. Wife, how are you here?" The men who had stepped forward recognized the souls of their wives and began crying uncontrollably. The rest of the crowd felt chills, their eyes filled with fear. Thinking about how close he came to losing his family, George dropped to his knees before Kiran, saying sincerely, "Miracle Dr. York, please rid us of this sorcerer and save the people of 5 Ram City." "Kill Daoist Master Caleb!" The men who had lost their wives shouted angrily, no longer obstructing Kiran. By now, everyone believed that Caleb was indeed a sorcerer. They envied George for his good fortune in meeting Kiran. Kiran hadn't expected so many families to be destroyed. Considering each family had lost a child as well, it amounted to 2 lives per family, fueling his anger further. "Damn Caleb. My wife died, and he said he would perform rites for her soul, charging me money. Me too. He killed people for money and made us grateful to him for life. He's beyond evil. He deserves to die." The crowd grew even angrier, urging Kiran to act. "Caleb, if you don't come out, I'll smash this bottle," Kiran shouted, raising the bottle. The crowd looked around, searching for Caleb. Chapter 996. Caleb had been hiding in the distance, watching the scene unfold. At first, he was pleased to see the commotion, hoping it would force Kiran York to leave or allow them to snatch the bottle from him. But the arrival of George Langford turned the situation around, frustrating him greatly. "Damn Kiran York, ruining all my plans," Caleb cursed angrily. "What if you can't get that yin blood-nourishing vein bottle?" Horace Moor asked cautiously. "Without that bottle, I can't complete the designed nether heaven formation or obtain the dragon vein power from 5 Rams Mountain," Caleb replied, barely containing his anger. "You use the bottle to connect with the dragon vein, right?" Horace asked. "Yes, the function of the umbilical cord blood serves as the link. Without it, I can't achieve my goal," Caleb explained again. "Kiran York has your lifeline," Horace remarked. Caleb clenched his fists, his eyes filled with anger and helplessness. "Caleb, if you don't come out, I'll destroy this bottle," Kiran said, scanning the surroundings with a cold smile. "I know you're back. How long do you think you can hide?" "Kiran York, don't be so arrogant. Don't forget I have Jenny Leo's soul in my hands," Caleb retorted, forced out of hiding by Kiran's taunts. "Caleb, you old sorcerer! I'm going to kill you!" The crowd erupted in chaos, with some rushing forward to fight. "Get back!" Caleb shouted, pushing away those who charged at him. His cold eyes locked onto Kiran. "Give me that bottle now, or I'll destroy Jenny's soul and scatter it to the winds." "You dare?" Kiran said defiantly. "Do you think I won't?" Caleb responded, tightening his grip on Jenny's soul. Jenny Leo's soul, like a fragile infant, was at the mercy of Caleb. The slightest pressure could destroy it. Seeing this, Kiran's eyes turned icy. "If you harm Jenny Leo, I'll not only tear down this temple but also go to the headquarters of Imperial Dragon and kill everyone who supports you." Caleb hesitated, surprised by Kiran's boldness. However, he quickly recovered and sneered. "Kiran York, do you think I'm afraid of you?" "Stop dreaming." "Fine." Kiran huffed, stepping forward with the bottle. Caleb's eyes flickered with caution and tension, but he stood his ground, pretending to be unafraid. "Kiran York, do you really want to kill Jenny?" As he spoke, he tightened his grip, causing Jenny's soul to cry out like a baby in distress. Kiran's heart ached as he heard the cries. "Wah, wah, wah!" George Langford's wife's baby began to cry as well, seemingly feeling the pain of Jenny's soul. Realizing this was the reincarnation of Jenny's mother, Kiran's emotions were a mix of complexity and rage. Finally, he took a deep breath, suppressing his anger. "Let's make a trade. I'll give you this bottle and you give me Jenny's soul." Caleb breathed a sigh of relief. Although he wanted Jenny's soul, the bottle was more important. "You can't give him the bottle. What about our wives and children?" Those angry at Caleb pleaded with Kiran. Kiran looked at them. Thud, thud. The men whose wives had died knelt before Kiran. "Miracle Dr. York, please save our wives and children. They can't come back to life," George Langford tried to explain, helping Kiran. "Even if they can't, they shouldn't be trapped there. It's too tragic. We want them to rest in peace. Please, Miracle Dr. York. Please, Miracle Dr. York. Let's all bow to him." Fearing Kiran might trade for Jenny's soul, the men begged. Caleb, pleased, taunted, "Kiran York, will you sacrifice so many souls for one woman?" He then addressed the crowd. "Their souls are trapped in endless cycles of false hope and despair, reliving their deaths over and over." The crowd, horrified by this description, cried out in anguish. "Miracle Dr. York, please," the men pleaded again, their cries desperate. "Kiran York, are you really going to let all these people suffer for one woman?" Caleb mocked, trying to turn the crowd against Kiran. "Wah, wah, wah!" The cries of George Langford's wife's baby grew louder, expressing its inner pain and disappointment. Kiran's heart ached as if pricked by needles. Suddenly his eyes widened. "Caleb, the living can be saved. The dead have their fate." Caleb, surprised, asked, "Kiran York, are you abandoning these people?" "What do you think?" Kiran replied, raising the bottle high. "No," Caleb shouted, panicking. "Don't, Miracle Dr. York," the crowd cried, rushing forward. "This is fate," Kiran shouted, throwing the bottle hard towards Lilian's. "No!" Caleb screamed, lunging to catch the bottle, forgetting Jenny's soul in his panic. Kiran seized the opportunity to grab Jenny's soul and quickly threw the bottle to Lilian. Lilian, in sync, caught the bottle Kiran threw. Caleb realized he had been tricked. "Damn you, Kiran York, you're so cunning!" Caleb cursed, stomping away. Kiran quickly carried Jenny, with her soul now intact, into a room in the temple. Lilian stood holding the bottle while the crowd sighed in relief, their faces showing joy. Chapter 997. In the room, Kiran held Jenny's soul in his hands. Jenny's soul appeared like a frightened infant, tense and curled up, with a face full of fear and unease. She glanced at Kiran, still wary. Seeing her in such a state made Kiran's heart ache. He gently stroked Jenny's soul and softly said, "It's all right, I'm Kiran, your man." Jenny seemed to relax a bit upon hearing his words, but remained cautious. Kiran carefully placed her soul on her body and tenderly caressed it. Gradually, Jenny's soul started to relax, slowly expanding like a baby growing up. After a few minutes, it returned to its normal state, merging seamlessly with her body. Kiran chanted a spell, guiding her soul back into her body, merging the two entities into one. Watching her soul and body unite, Kiran breathed a sigh of relief. He gently stroked Jenny's forehead and softly said, "Wake up!" Jenny obediently opened her eyes, like a child waking from a deep sleep, and looked at Kiran. Kiran's face was full of warmth and concern, while Jenny, as if waking from a nightmare, suddenly wrapped her arms around Kiran and burst into tears. Feeling Jenny's trembling body and sensing her inexplicable tension and unease, Kiran's heart filled with sympathy. He gently patted her shoulder and softly said, "It's all right, it's all right." Jenny continued to tremble, clinging to Kiran tightly as if afraid of losing him. Kiran felt an overwhelming urge to protect her. He kissed her forehead and, looking at the still frightened Jenny, smiled and said, "It's really all right now." After the initial tension, Jenny began to calm down. She playfully pinched Kiran under his arm and, with a face full of grievance, said, "Of course, I know it's all right now. If something had happened, I would have fought you." Hearing Jenny's words, Kiran helplessly rubbed his nose. This woman was changing her mood again. The dragon vein power was indeed mysterious. "My man." Jenny suddenly beamed, wrapping her arms around Kiran's neck. Kiran couldn't help but chuckle. "Wasn't that just to comfort you and help you relax?" "I don't care. You said you'd marry me before, and now you said you're my man. I believe you. You're my man now." Jenny's tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. Kiran could only smile wryly and shake his head, feeling resigned. Jenny, however, was relaxed and carefree, not caring about Kiran's thoughts, deliberately clinging to him. Eventually, Kiran sighed and said, "Come on, there's something important we need to handle. What is it?" Jenny asked curiously, looking at Kiran. "There are many people outside whose wives and unborn children were harmed by that evil Daoist master Caleb. Their souls need to be taken care of, and I need to help them move on," Kiran explained. "You can do that too? You really are something," Jenny teased, pouting playfully. Kiran could only laugh, getting ready to go outside. "Can you tell by looking at my face if I'll give you a son or a daughter?" Jenny suddenly asked seriously. Kiran was so startled that he almost dropped Jenny. Jenny wrapped her arms around Kiran's neck. "Don't think you can just absorb my power and take advantage of me without being with me. If you don't unite with me, one day you won't be able to control that power, and then—" "And then what?" Kiran asked nervously when Jenny trailed off. Jenny made a sound mimicking an explosion. Jenny laughed, her voice like silver bells, her face radiant. Kiran looked at her and seriously asked, "Do you have some secret? If you want to know, come and explore my body," Jenny teased, rubbing her soft body against Kiran, her eyes full of allure. Kiran quickly focused his thoughts, not daring to continue the conversation. However, he was full of curiosity about Jenny's dragon vein power and why it caused her personality to change. "We need to handle those people's issues first. We'll talk about us later," Kiran said seriously to Jenny, suppressing his curiosity. "All right," Jenny agreed calmly. "I'm not afraid of you finding out my secret. Take your time." Kiran sighed with resignation and led Jenny outside. The people outside hadn't left. They were curious about how Kiran would cure Jenny and how he would deal with the red bottle. Seeing Kiran come out with Jenny, George Langford led the applause and shouted, "Miracle Dr. York is mighty! Miracle Dr. York is mighty!" the others echoed. At this moment, no one doubted Kiran's medical skills. Kiran remained calm and looked at the frightened young Daoists. Now, get the necessary items for the ceremony and set up a tent for me here. The young Daoists, almost petrified with fear, nodded woodenly. Be quick about it. George Langford saw their hesitation and kicked one of them, urging him. The young Daoists, scared out of their wits, hurriedly complied, nodding frantically. Okay. The temple had everything needed, and the young Daoists were experienced, so they quickly set everything up. The men whose wives and children had died watched the preparations, unable to hold back their tears. Kiran also felt heavy-hearted knowing these deaths were all caused by Daoist Master Caleb's sins. He held up the red bottle, his eyes turning severe and even a bit bloodshot, determined to bring Caleb and his accomplices to justice. As Kiran was about to open the bottle, Caleb, watching from afar, felt his heart shatter. Unable to contain his rage, he shouted angrily at Kiran. Chapter 998. Kiran York, if you really release them all, 5 Rams Mountain will be shrouded in vengeful spirits, and the entire mountain, even 5 Ram City, will be destroyed. Daoist Master Caleb's urgent voice echoed from a distance. Hearing his voice made Kiran York even angrier. This stubborn old fool still harbored greedy desires. Caleb, stop your fear-mongering. Once I'm done here, I'll kill you. With that, Kiran abruptly opened the red bottle. No, don't. Caleb's voice, filled with anger and boundless pain, screamed as if his heart had been pierced. Ooh. A red ghostly figure emerged from the bottle, transforming into a mist of blood and flying in all directions before vanishing. That's my wife Zara's spirit, cried a man kneeling on the ground, reaching out as if trying to grasp her. Kiran paused, surprised that the spirit had escaped without a chance for him to offer it peace. He quickly covered the bottle's mouth with his hand, reciting incantations to calm the remaining spirits. Crack! The bottle made a sharp sound before shattering into pieces. A blood mist dispersed into the air and disappeared quickly. Everyone, including Kiran, was stunned. Why did these spirits refuse to be pacified? It seemed they wanted to vanish from the world on their own. What's happening? Someone asked Kiran, bewildered. Before Kiran could explain, Caleb wailed loudly. It's over. 5 Rams Mountain is doomed. Kiran and the others turned to look at 5 Rams Mountain. Once lush and green in the summer, it now seemed as if autumn had suddenly arrived. The trees' leaves turned red and looked about to wither. What's going on? Everyone wondered. It's contaminated. It's turning evil. Lilian warned Kiran loudly. Kiran understood that Caleb's cruelty had filled the spirits with resentment, contaminating 5 Rams Mountain. He cursed under his breath, damn it. Kiran turned to George Langford and the others. You all need to leave 5 Rams Mountain now. I'll handle this. He began to rush up the mountain. Take me with you! Jenny Leo quickly grabbed Kiran and followed. Lilian also joined them. The 3 raced up the mountain seeking the Dragon Veins cave. 5 Rams Mountain had become a source of contamination. If the vengeful spirit's power combined with the Dragon Veins, it would turn the area into a death zone. If that happened, not only 5 Rams Mountain and 5 Rams City, but other areas could be contaminated like a slow-acting poison spreading to other Dragon Veins. Kiran was anxious, blaming himself for underestimating the opponent's evil power. From a distance, Caleb and Horace Moor watched, their faces pale, clearly out of control. What do we do? Horace asked. I don't know, Caleb replied, shaking his head. You don't know? Horace was furious, especially thinking about the Dragon Veins' power. I really don't. I've nurtured 5 Rams Mountain's Dragon Vein for over 20 years with umbilical blood, but it's become greedy and turned the spirits of dead women into vengeful ghosts. This is beyond my control, Caleb said helplessly. You're useless. Horace stomped his foot in anger, knowing the Dragon Vein was now unattainable. Let's go. We don't want to get dragged into this. He didn't wait for Caleb's response and ran off. Caleb took one last look at 5 Rams Mountain, realizing he couldn't control it, and reluctantly followed Horace. Caleb had caused a mess and fled in panic, leaving it behind. Kiran, Jenny, and Lilian had reached the cave, finding the vengeful spirit's power being sucked into it. Along the way, they saw numerous animals mysteriously dead, their spirits also entering the cave. The Dragon Vein of 5 Rams Mountain now resembled a beast with a gaping maw, continuously absorbing these dark powers which contaminated it further, creating a vicious cycle. Let's go in, Kiran said at the cave entrance, leading the way inside. The cave was still red, but the color had become more sinister and terrifying, making everyone's hair stand on end as if touched by ice. Jenny Leo seemed at ease, as if she were returning home. Lilian stayed at the rear, her face serious, continuously channeling energy to resist the cold. At first it was just cold, but as they went deeper it felt like a force was trying to pull their souls out, causing immense discomfort and pain. Lilian noticed Kiran was also channeling energy to resist, while Jenny's eyes shone brightly as if she had discovered a magical land. She showed no sign of fear or discomfort. "Kiran, let Jenny lead," Lilian suggested. "No, I." Kiran started to refuse but quickly felt a crushing force on his chest, making it hard to breathe and move forward. He tried to channel more energy to counter the force but was nearly overwhelmed. Bang, bang, bang! The air seemed to burst around him. He barely held on when Jenny grabbed him, pulling him aside. "Watch your wife," she said, charging ahead. Kiran sighed with relief, but his eyes widened in shock. Chapter 999. A red dragon's shadow flew out from within Jenny Leo and directly pierced through the wall of pressure, entering inside. Kiran York quickly looked at Lilian Yanez, noticing the tension and astonishment on her face. They both turned to Jenny, who stood there casually, watching the dragon's shadow inside as if she were observing marine life through an aquarium glass. Kiran, filled with concern, stepped forward and gently tugged Jenny's arm. "Are you okay?" Jenny turned to Kiran with a bright smile on her beautiful oval face and asked, what could possibly be wrong? Kiran was stunned, his eyes questioning as he looked at the dragon inside. It was clear he was asking if she had seen it. Jenny shrugged at him. "That's Little Mischief. It likes to play inside." "Little Mischief?" Kiran was confused, his mind racing with shock. "Yes, this little rascal lives inside me. It throws tantrums and uses its power to bully me when it's upset," Jenny explained as if telling a story. Kiran and Lilian were dumbfounded. They hadn't expected that the dragon from Sacred Dragon Mountain was sentient enough to freely enter and exit Jenny's body. This was truly bizarre. Jenny now seemed like a little dragon girl. They finally understood why Jenny's personality was so changeable. This was the real reason. The two of them didn't know what the dragon shadow would do next. They didn't dare to act recklessly, fearing they would make things worse. The spirits inside were nervous and tried to hide from the dragon shadow, which chased them playfully, like a child teasing its friends. Kiran and Lilian were both frustrated and helpless. Only Jenny seemed happy, clapping and occasionally shouting encouragement to the dragon shadow, urging it to deal with the spirits. As time passed, the spirits grew weaker and began to fall onto the dragon vein, which emitted more resentment and started to devour them. When the dragon shadow touched the dragon vein, a black and red dragon shadow suddenly emerged, rushing toward Jenny's dragon shadow. Jenny's dragon shadow seemed startled and tried to evade. The black and red dragon shadow was ferocious, intent on devouring Jenny's dragon shadow. Jenny's dragon shadow managed to resist briefly but soon grew scared and attempted to escape. Kiran and Lilian realized that Jenny's dragon shadow was like a mischievous child provoking an adult, and now, terrified, it didn't know what to do. "Jenny, think of a way to make it fight back." Kiran and Lilian urged. "I don't know how." Jenny looked at them helplessly. Kiran quickly joined forces with Jenny to control it. "If that dragon shadow devours hers, 5 Rams Mountain will truly go mad," Lilian said urgently. Kiran understood the severity of the situation. He quickly moved beside Jenny. "Sit down cross-legged. You want to sleep with me?" Jenny asked innocently, like a naive child. Kiran almost choked in exasperation. "I need to channel your energy to control the dragon shadow and fight the black and red dragon," Kiran explained. "Oh, okay," Jenny replied, sitting down mechanically. She looked at Kiran and said, "You always take advantage of me." Kiran felt helpless and almost spat blood. Even now, she had the mood to tease him. He took a deep breath and placed his palm against hers, channeling his energy into her body to control the dragon's shadow. Jenny didn't resist, allowing Kiran's energy to enter her freely. However, Kiran soon realized something was wrong. His energy couldn't control the force within Jenny, instead clashing with it. The dragon shadow's evasive action sent recoil forces back into Kiran, almost causing him to cough up blood. Lilian saw this and quickly warned Kiran, "You two need to be in sync. I love Kiran, but he doesn't love Memi." Jenny shouted at Lilian. Lilian didn't know how to respond. Kiran thought to himself, "Even now she says this nonsense?" Desperate, Kiran tried to suppress Jenny's energy. Roar, roar, roar. A series of sounds echoed as Kiran and Jenny felt an immense burden, overwhelmed by a torrent of energy. Jenny's dragon shadow was already subdued by the black and red dragon shadow about to be devoured. Kiran's heart sank. Jenny suddenly cried out, as if a child about to lose a beloved toy, crying and anxious. "Don't worry," Kiran quickly comforted her. "My little mischief is about to be gone," Jenny cried, shaking her head. Kiran felt helpless. If that dragon shadow were devoured, not only Little Mischief but also Jenny and everyone else would be doomed. They were at the brink, with no retreat. In his desperation, Kiran leaned forward and kissed Jenny, hoping to synchronize their minds as Lilian suggested. Jenny saw Kiran approaching, her beautiful face showing a mix of emotions. She pushed him away, saying, "Don't take advantage of me." Chapter 1000. Kiran York's carefully built emotional state instantly crumbled, leaving him frustrated and nearly spitting blood. He looked at Jenny Leo, who was as tense as a frightened bird, and felt utterly exasperated. This woman, with her childlike personality, would remain a perpetual little girl if this continued, an eternal baby girl who never grew up. "My Little Mischief!" Jenny cried out anxiously as she saw the playful dragon shadow being devoured by the black and red dragon shadow. "Kiran, hurry, or she won't hold on," Lilian Yanez urged Kiran urgently. Kiran knew time was critical. Ignoring everything else, he grabbed Jenny and kissed her deeply. Jenny tried to resist, but Kiran didn't give her a chance. As their lips met, Kiran felt his entire body freeze, an icy coldness seeping through him. He quickly realized that Little Mischief had already merged with Jenny. The black and red dragon shadow devouring it was akin to devouring Jenny. At this moment, Jenny was being overtaken by the black and red dragon shadow's power, slowly being consumed. Kiran kissed Jenny harder, trying to channel his energy to awaken her internal power. Initially, Jenny's energy was frozen, rejecting his attempts. Despite this, Kiran persisted, striving to break through. No matter how hard Kiran tried, his energy couldn't penetrate Jenny's frozen barrier. Synchronizing their minds seemed even more impossible. Kiran grew increasingly desperate. Jenny's life was in imminent danger. Little Mischief was almost completely devoured, its tail still twitching desperately as if waving for help. The more it was devoured, the colder Jenny became, making Kiran feel the chill even from beside her. "Take off your clothes and hold her tight," Lilian shouted from the side. Kiran's mind buzzed. This was going to be intimate. Just then, Jenny screamed in agony. Kiran saw that Little Mischief had been swallowed even further. He knew there was no time to waste. In a fit of urgency, Kiran tore his clothes apart and forcefully lifted Jenny's red skirt. Jenny, feeling even colder, threw herself into Kiran's embrace. They clung to each other tightly. "Try using your heart to guide Jenny's heart, generating internal strength to melt the ice," Lilian instructed from the side. Kiran said nothing and followed her guidance. Pressing his heart against Jenny's chest, he felt the cold and pain but continued channeling his energy, trying to warm her. Jenny, like a helpless child, clung to Kiran as if he were her only hope. As they embraced, Kiran's warmth slowly seeped into Jenny. Jenny's body, initially frozen, began to warm, gradually melting and integrating with Kiran. Kiran sighed in relief, his hands gently stroking Jenny's back, infusing her with his energy. Jenny's body temperature slowly returned. Little Mischief, almost devoured, suddenly seemed to gain strength, struggling to break free from the black and red dragon shadow. The black and red dragon shadow, surprised by this resistance, became more aggressive. Little Mischief sensed the danger and fought back fiercely. Jenny's body grew cold again, like a lifeless corpse. Kiran felt a force recoil from Jenny, hitting him hard. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood, splattering onto Jenny. Almost losing consciousness, Jenny felt Kiran's blood, and a concern flickered across her face. A surge of inexplicable tension welled up inside her, awakening a new strength. Little Mischief, sensing this power, expanded and struggled harder to break free. "Kiran, keep going, there's hope," Lilian shouted, encouraging Kiran. Kiran, seeing a glimmer of hope, endured the pain and continued channeling all his energy into Jenny. Jenny's body made cracking sounds like ice breaking. With a final snap, the invisible barrier between them shattered. Kiran and Jenny were pulled into Little Mischief's body, directly entering the black and red dragon shadow. The black and red dragon shadow, like it had swallowed a football, swelled significantly. Lilian paced anxiously but remained relieved, sensing that Kiran was safe. Inside the black and red dragon shadow, Kiran and Jenny began absorbing the dragon vein's power. This included Little Mischief's power and the black and red dragon shadow's power. Little Mischief also absorbed Jenny's power, weakening the black and red dragon shadow. Feeling weakened and threatened, the black and red dragon shadow violently expelled Little Mischief along with Kiran and Jenny. Little Mischief, terrified, darted back into Jenny's body, hiding. Kiran and Jenny floated in the air, still embracing but now glowing like a sun, continuously absorbing the black and red dragon shadow's power. The black and red dragon shadow, enraged, thrashed around, trying to escape but seemed tethered by an invisible string. Lilian sighed in relief, knowing they were safe. Suddenly, the black and red dragon shadow seemed to go crazy. In a final act of madness, it lunged at Kiran and Jenny.